Thanks again for being here, Vasu. So what stood out to you from day one of Microsoft Ignite?
Oh, great question, Natalia. And so many things stood out to me, really. But the one thing I would love to share about is how all the cool product innovation and integration across our portfolio, whether it was modern work or dynamics and business apps, and how Azure powers collaboration throughout that stack. And Natalia, I loved hearing all the customer stories, the heart of it, the examples of how the Microsoft Cloud enables innovation across all these diverse industries. And then, of course, seeing the emphasis of security throughout all aspects of the business. I'm so excited to see Satya talking about our unique, comprehensive approach to customer security and so much more.
So that was your message in the theme session yesterday, Microsoft's comprehensive approach to cybersecurity. I think it really resonated with the audience because everyone is facing the same security challenges today.
So true, Nick. And, as you know, security is top of mind for all organizations of all sizes across all industry, no matter where you are. And it's no wonder. So let's look at some stats. There's been a 667% increase in phishing attacks during the pandemic. It's mind-blowing. There are 50 million password attacks every single day. And with hybrid work, the surface area for attacks has grown fast. And as you both know, we have to take a comprehensive approach. We have to think about security, compliance, identity, device management, and privacy management. We have to think about the cloud and the edge and everything in between. We have to think about multi-cloud and multi-platform and multi-devices. So that's a lot.
Completely. Yesterday, you also shared a bunch of exciting announcements about new security solutions and features from Microsoft. But one announcement that really stood out to me was Microsoft Defender for Business. It's a new threat protection solution that's built specifically for small and medium-sized businesses. Is that right, Vasu?
It is, and I love that announcement, and I love that solution. It's close to my heart. So let's think about it, right? Enterprise and government organizations aren't the only ones being targeted today. Natalia, what's so interesting to me is I saw a stat the other day that 75% of small business owners don't think they'll be hit by bad actors. But more than a third of cyber attacks are aimed at small and medium-sized businesses. So Defender for Business, which is our targeted small and medium business solution, brings preventive protection, post-breach detection, and automated investigation response. So now those small and medium businesses can get the same level of protection an enterprise org can get at a cost-effective price. What that means is they can do what they do, whether it's a small retailer or supplier, they can live their wholesales, they can focus on their customers, and be fearless about the threats that are out there.
Let's talk about being fearless, Vasu. We heard those words a couple of times yesterday in your session, be fearless. If you could expand a bit on that, that would be great. With the growing cybercrime economy, the ongoing challenges, building and maintaining security, how do you be fearless? What does it mean to be fearless in 2021?
It's a great question. I personally love those words, and I heard Natalia talk about them earlier as well. Be fearless. The reason and the idea behind them, Nick, is we're celebrating today's security heroes. We are honoring those who do the quiet, hard work to safeguard people, safeguard organizations every single day in this new normal. Security, as you both know, is at such an inflection point right now. It's one of the top concerns for every organization, and it should be, absolutely. But the point of security has always been and always will be empowerment. It's about lifting people up. It's about creating a safe space for them to create, to innovate, to live their best selves. It's about building trust. And it's about making technology serve us all better as human beings across our whole lives, whether it's clouds, platforms, devices, home, work. So when security achieves its purpose, people can be fearless and empowered to do more safely. And that's what I love about this. And I love that we're committed to helping people be fearless. What can be more quintessential than that?
Absolutely. I second that. I love that message. So what are the key elements that can help organizations gain that confidence to be fearless today?
It's a great question. And I love frameworks. So I'm going to start with frameworks. And it's the 3P framework. And the first P is principles, people, and platform. But I want to start with people first because it's at the heart of it. We need to be investing in our communities, and not just our teams, Natalia, but our partners too, and everyone we work with. There's a global talent shortage right now. We're going through the great reshuffle. People are rethinking, and in security, there are millions of jobs that are unfulfilled. So we have to make investments in skilling and training, but also building and investing in a culture of empathy and inclusion. You both talked about digital empathy. It's more important than ever. The second P in our framework is principles. We need to embrace a combination of zero trust architectural principles. You've heard a lot about zero trust from me, and it's important. And zero trust needs to be part of our organizational security strategies. As I've said before, the principles of zero trust are a business imperative today. Verify explicitly, grant least privilege access, and always assume breach. You've got to build your security strategy on those principles. And then third, and the final principle, platform. We need to continuously leverage modern cloud-based technologies to keep up with this completely crazy, ever-evolving, changing threat landscape. So committing to a platform that can provide the most comprehensive end-to-end security posture is super important for us. So let's remember those 3 Ps: people, principles, and platform. And I think if we embrace them, we'll build better security.
It wouldn't be a Microsoft show without 3 Ps. So those are 3 critical areas to concentrate on for sure. And we're going to be touching on all of those topics in our upcoming sessions at Microsoft Ignite Into Focus. Before we let you go, Vasu, as a security leader here at Microsoft, what guidance would you give to security leaders, security practitioners, our virtual audience here behind us, to really think about how do we change that mode of thinking to put people at the top priority? How do you start to address people?
I love that question, Nick, and you both work closely with me, so you know how important people's heart is at the center of everything we do. And I think that the thing that differentiates the defenders from the attackers is our human spirit. It's our resilience. It's that we're going to keep going, and that's how we're going to fight this very asymmetric battle. So people are at the center of it all, and the 2 superpowers of now and the next generation is empathy and resilience. So that's how I think of it, and it's our absolute responsibility to lift our people up and lead with those values.
That's fantastic. So I love those 3 principles. Just to recap, so it's going to be people at the top, always people at the top, principles, and a key part of that is going to be zero trust. And then the third is investing in the platform, having that comprehensive end-to-end solution.
You got that right.
Absolutely. And we're going to talk more about that today over the next 90 minutes. Vasu, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Well, I'm super excited that we're bringing together so many industry experts, the community, and it's really this kind of collaboration and learning that will help us come together, that will help us rise to the challenge and help us build a better and a safer world. So thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here, Vasu. We'll see Vasu a little later with special guest Christopher Krebs.
Well, right now, Microsoft's Chief Information Security Officer, Bret Arsenault, is taking us inside the Cyber Defense Operations Center. It's like Central Command for cybersecurity.
Exactly. It's the nerve center where Microsoft fights threats in real time, both in person and virtually. Here's Bret with more.
Hello, welcome everyone. I'm Bret Arsenault, Microsoft's Chief Information Security Officer. I'm here today at Microsoft's Cyber Defense Operations Center. We like to call it the CDOC for short. It's surrounded by monitors, PCs, and trillions of daily security signals come in here that get turned into insights and visualizations that our analysts use to protect Microsoft and our customers. Pre-COVID, this place was buzzing with people, but at Microsoft, we've fully embraced the flexibility of hybrid work, including our security operations, allowing us to work safely while helping keep Microsoft and our customers secure. I'm excited to be here to kick off Microsoft Ignite's Into Focus Security, our thought leadership deep dive into the challenges organizations are facing in today's ever-changing landscape. We are operating in the most complex cybersecurity landscape we've ever seen. The World Economic Forum estimates cyber attacks jumped 238% globally between February and April of 2020, when the pandemic began. With our new hybrid reality, we will continue to move fluidly between work, home, and everywhere in between across multiple devices. Hybrid work is here to stay. 81% of organizations have begun the move toward a hybrid workplace, with 31% already being fully adopted. Internally at Microsoft, it's about 50-50. Those who want to work from home the majority of the time, and those who want to work from the office the majority of the time. But the interesting thing is the reason cited is the same in both cases, which is they feel they can be more productive and less distracted in both environments. What may be the right environment for one person may not be for another. This is an inclusive approach. We're not making assumptions. We have to be sure that people who are remote are as included as people who are not. And then in that environment, no matter where you are, it's still secure. While remote work changed the paradigm, our security priorities don't change because how we're working is changing. It's about giving employees options and choice. Security is a journey, and we're embracing progress over perfection. The key is that every step you take in the process makes your organization safer and simpler. In fact, it makes all of us safer as we work together to stop malicious activity from causing harm and to protect data and privacy in a modern, connected world. That's why right now is an opportunity to accelerate digital transformation if businesses aren't already on that path. We've seen more transformation happening during the pandemic than ever before. In fact, we saw about 2 years of progress during the first 2 months of COVID-19 as companies had to pivot to this new paradigm. In this work from anywhere environment, security teams must remain vigilant in performing the fundamentals of cybersecurity, especially in light of recent attacks. It is critical that businesses continue to move from traditional on-premises cybersecurity solutions to modern cloud-based implementations, and frankly, away from network-based perimeter-type solutions and identity as the center of your security strategy. If maintaining device health is challenging, for example, new employees can't get devices, etc., from supply, you can actually leverage virtualization. Virtualization will abstract that away so you can run it on other devices that you normally wouldn't and still have full security. Virtualization is to computing what Netflix was to movies. Probably most importantly is ensure all of your systems have telemetry, not just network telemetry. You have to have authentication telemetry, network telemetry, endpoint telemetry, service telemetry, and correlate all of that. What's important in that correlation is not just anomaly detection for security, but really using that to drive the best user experience you possibly can. It doesn't matter what device you log in with, you should get access to the content you need at the right time. However, I empathize and understand that not every business can modernize. Even at Microsoft, we were running legacy systems. So getting rid of legacy systems is a task you'll have to do, but there are ways to start if you can't modernize everything right away. Number one, low-cost modernization techniques like proxying services or using virtualization, as I mentioned before. Number two, compartmentalize. For example, our IoT gear that doesn't have computing power for encryption or the ability to do strong authentication is segmented into separate networks. For us, that's printers. For retailers, that may be curbside kiosks, etc. And number three, just start. You have to start somewhere. Progress over perfection is the mantra. You don't have to solve for all this overnight. Do segmentation first for your legacy systems. Remote work has changed the paradigm, but we have a security model that is pervasive with zero trust. The model works the same. It doesn't matter if you're at home, traveling, or at work. The identity, device, continual data monitoring works the same way in all those scenarios. Hybrid work is a massive catalyst for zero trust acceleration, and it's revealing the importance of having identity embedded closely with your security tools and productivity platforms. Our sign-in service sees 90 billion authentication requests every day. Password-based attacks remain the main source of identity compromise. However, other types of attacks are emerging, including consent phishing and attacks on non-human identities. What can companies do to protect themselves, and what workers need to know to keep their company's secrets safe? As companies have been adapting their security posture for remote work in the hybrid workforce, we have seen over a 220% increase in strong authentication usage in the last 18 months. That is great progress. Microsoft research shows that requiring strong authentication can protect against 99.9% of the identity attacks. The majority of identity attacks are related to passwords. As I said before, get rid of passwords. For us, the litmus test is if employees love it, it just works, and IT trusts it, then that's a win. The user experience is something we prioritize. If employees had a bad user experience, then they'll work around us, and that's a terrible outcome. As a security team, we have to factor in the human experience. I think of this as digital empathy. We will continue to embrace the culture of security at Microsoft, where every role in every department has a role to play in security. The time is now. The breaches aren't stopping. If we want to get a handle on this, it starts with each and every one of us. It takes all of us every day, whereas it only takes one of them once. Security has to be part of our DNA. One perfect example of improved security and a great user experience is our approach to identity authentication. We started using Windows Hello for Business for the Windows platform and Microsoft Authenticator to ensure that our users had a great experience with multi-factor authentication for Windows, Linux, Mac, iOS, and Android. There's a great saying I learned from my math professor: honor the past, be honest about the present, and build for the future. It really applies here. Absolutely honor the fact that you have legacy systems. Assess where you actually are today and make sure you build zero trust into your future. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. I'm hopeful today's sessions will help you in securing the future of hybrid work.
Thank you, Bret. He brought up some great points about how hybrid work is shaping responses to security threats. And wow, 2 years of progress towards digital transformation during the first 2 months of the pandemic, that data point really put the security challenge into perspective for me.
I really enjoyed Bret's perspective on the importance of both multi-factor authentication as a powerful and accessible first step towards adopting a zero trust approach. And I also love Bret's push for us all to go passwordless. I cannot wait until the end of passwords. Passwords, go away.
Totally agree. We are just getting started here. Stick around because we'll be taking questions from our virtual audience in just a few.
So, like we mentioned earlier, Natalia and I co-host a podcast called Security Unlocked. You can subscribe today. And we thought we'd do a little mini live episode of our show right here at Microsoft Ignite Into Focus.
Let's do it. So, one major theme of today's show is how attackers have adapted to modern work. Here to help us break it down is Katie Nichols, Director of Intelligence at Red Canary. She joins us via Teams. Katie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here. Little visual description. I'm a white woman. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm here in my hacker hoodie in my office with my bookshelves and, of course, my MITRE ATT&CK matrix flag in the background.
Of course. Well, it's so great to have you here, Katie. Let's start with a question, of course, on hybrid work. So how did attackers capitalize on the sudden shift to hybrid work?
What we know is that adversaries are constantly going to be responding to whatever organizations do in their networks. So what we saw at the beginning of the pandemic is so many organizations had to really quickly set up remote infrastructure. That led to maybe a lot of unsecure network connections. We talked about the need for passwordless, but there's still a lot of connections out there to the internet that are only protected with a password. And so adversaries have really capitalized on that, using brute force authentication methods. And same thing with hybrid work, new appliances getting stood up that might not be patched, might not be secure. So it just builds on this continual theme that adversaries will respond to whatever we are doing in our networks.
And perhaps even more evidence for adopting a zero trust approach. Katie, I'd love to know what type of threats or threat trends are on your radar, what you've seen with the shift to hybrid work, and then sort of what you see coming as hybrid work is here to stay.
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of people will ask, right, during the pandemic or remote work or hybrid work times, have the threats shifted? And what we've seen is it's a lot of the same kind of techniques. It's just that our networks sometimes are more vulnerable. But in terms of major threat trends that I'm tracking, my team is tracking, like everyone in the security world, ransomware is the huge one. Despite, maybe some glimmers of hope that Black Matter or other groups might be tampering down a little bit, ransomware remains one of the biggest threats to every organization. And what my team really tries to focus on is not just the ransomware itself, because the encryption or the exfil, that's pretty bad. But what I think is so often missed is that ransomware can be stopped. It's a chain of activity. And so we focus on ransomware precursors. Just this week, we're seeing a flurry of Quackbot or Qbot activity, which we know, if left unremediated, could lead to lateral movement and then ultimately ransomware. So of course, ransomware, but not just the encryption part, the precursors top on my radar. And then another one, kind of a theme of 2021, supply chain. Right, post SolarWinds, I think this is a wake-up call for everyone. We need to pay attention to supply chain, but whether it's Nobelium or something simpler like my team saw NPM package compromises the other week, right? Thinking about what kind of software we use, what kind of trusts we have. Again, going back to that zero trust concept.
I love that point about ransomware. You really don't hear that part of the discussion as often. So it'll take a community to combat these threats like ransomware. Are we functioning as a community today? How can defenders better come together, share information?
Yeah, information sharing is one of those things that has been a challenge for so many years. And I think that a lot of people overlook that we're actually doing quite a bit of information sharing, right? Microsoft team, my team, so many great teams out there will post blogs, share their findings. But I think the challenge we have is in making those findings applicable to more organizations. I love the focus that Vasu mentioned earlier on helping small and medium businesses protect themselves, because I think so often we all get caught up in what has been referred to as the security 1%. We really focus on, right, how do we share with each other, but we want to push those findings and what we know about threats down to the single IT admin, the person who maybe doesn't have a big security team. And so I think that's where we can do a lot better in terms of information sharing, making it more accessible and actionable to the everyday admin.
That's fantastic. I love that message of inclusivity, of sharing the message among folks outside of the more sort of focused cybersecurity space. So now let's take a question from our audience. Peter Gallagher asks, knowing what you know now, Katie, how would you have tackled the last 8 months to 2 years differently? Would you have done anything differently? And if so, what would it be?
Yeah, reflecting on the past year and a half of the pandemic, the thing that strikes me is something that Vasu also talked about is the people and the empathy. And if I could go back, I think I would tell myself to focus more on people and preventing burnout than anything else. This past year especially has just been so tough on everyone. We're living through a pandemic. We had the solar winds. We had web shell compromises. We've had compromise after compromise. It's a lot. And so focusing more on our teams, on our people, making sure that burnout is something we talk about and we actively try to prevent. So that's what I would tell myself from 2 years ago, is focus on people first. Security is important, but taking care of ourselves and our mental health is important above all else.
Katie, so great to hear you echo that message there of digital empathy and really putting mental health front and center, specifically for security practitioners who are at the front center. They're sort of our front lines here. So it's great to hear you echo that message. Katie, it was so great to have you on the show today. Thank you so much. We hope to hear you on the podcast at some point in the future. Please stay safe.
Thanks all. Have a great one.